I would like to officially welcome everybody to Louisville Center for Spiritual Living this morning. And as you may be noticing, the radiant Miss Carolyn Harville is not with us, and I'll be our speaker today, about which I'm very excited. Carolyn and Tracy are doing a little traveling. They're going to be gone until about the 12th of October, and then she will be back. And so welcome, welcome, and we're going to start with our opening song, which is Morning Prayer, I Will Surrender by Miss Karen Drucker.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let Spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free, as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path each day. And now I know that what I thought was safe and sound was only habit and regret that held me down. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am kinder every moment, every day. And I'm more loving every moment, every day. I will surrender every moment, every day.
This strikes me as one of those places in time where no more really need be said. I just invite you to take that pausing breath, making room for the beauty in this atmosphere. Relax into Miss Karen Drucker's beautiful words and her angelic voice as we recognize the full presence of Spirit in, through, and as what we've just been gifted by, in, through, and as the gift of each being here present for the purpose of Sunday celebration service for Louisville Center for Spiritual Living. I open this time as guided, directed, and pure joy. And I release it and let it be. And so it is. And now I'm turning it over to Miss Pat for our opening reading.
Yes, indeed. This reading this morning comes from the Global Vision of CSL, and the title is A World That Works for Everyone. We envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individuality and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought. A world where every person discovers his or her own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life, a world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. We envision a world in which resources are valued, cared for, and grown, and where there is generous and continuous sharing of these resources. We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. We envision a world which is renewed in its emphasis on beauty, nature, and love through the resurgence of creativity, art, and aesthetics. We envision a world where each person has enough food, a home, and a sense of belonging. We envision a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement, and justice. We envision a world that works for all creatures, a world that works for everyone. And for me personally, I want to add, from the eye of my heart, I can see the endless possibilities of a world that works for everyone in each one of your faces. Every Sunday, I draw strength and comfort in knowing we are just one of many groups who have the courage of our convictions to create a long-awaited outlet and opening for the birth of a brave new world. Much like childbirth, it won't be painless, and it may be messy, loud, and awkward, or clumsy at times. Some will refuse to look at it, much less embrace it. But as each of us nurtures, loves, and encourages it, the world that works for everyone will grow. It will evolve slowly and surely, and we will be so proud that we understood the possibilities first and that we courageously stepped up. And so it is. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that reading, Pat. Once
You're
again,
welcome.
I just invite us to take a minute to allow how that has impressed you to sink in. Okay. Such a beautiful speaking of the truth, and such a foundation for the presentation this morning, as is very often the case for me, and I will say possibly always. I'm just very excited to have this opportunity. And so the title of my talk today is Finding Our Diamonds in the Rough. And I came to that from the past couple of weeks, and particularly last week, Carolyn had the theme of Acres of Diamonds. And just briefly recapping, the concept of that is that we have the gifts of spirit, the gifts that we've been given, and our authentic gifts that we have to give from. They're around us all the time. And so often it's about our capacity to be able to perceive what is already right in front of us. And so we talked about that last week, and the actual fired up inspiration I have for the basis of my talk today comes from being in ministerial school. One of the classes that I'm in right now is world religions. And if any of you ever decide to get inspired to try taking a class from Holmes Institute, actually, you do not have to be a practitioner, and you do not have to be a ministerial student in any way to engage classes from Holmes Institute. And you could go in there, and I would definitely recommend picking up on world religions. If I had the opportunity to pick up a megaphone and reach the world, I would recommend that one of the things that we need now is for people of all faiths to get a more global, more earth-size view of not only the world's religions today, but most preciously, how religion, as the vehicles of spirituality, develop, and actually coming to realize in taking a look at that, that it is a natural accord, okay? We know that in Science of Mind, we're working with universal law, that there is this presence by one name is spirit, and that presence of universal love inherently has with it the law that supports all of this. And what I discovered as soon as I started delving into world religions is that that nature has been present since the very beginning of time. I mean, and we know that theoretically, I mean, we speak about consciousness being timeless, but I mean, in the way natural law on earth evolves, there is a process that is inclusive of the evolvement of spirituality in man. And it has completely expanded and freed up my view of actually the whole world realizing this. And you might hear some scientists, etc., say today that they believe that man has evolved to the nth degree that we can evolve. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think so. And so I just want to share some of the foundations of that. And then certainly there is a practical 2-day application that I want to leave you with. And one of the things, besides the idea that the spiritual law that we teach and the premise of science of mind is it is universal, and it's always been here and always will be, as far as I know, as far as the mode of how spirit moves into form. The other piece that I'm going to talk a little bit about today, and actually we're going to do a meditation at the end, has to do with the chakra system. Probably everyone on this call has an awareness of the 7 chakras, and that particular concept comes out of Eastern faith. And the Western side of that, there's a correlation. I don't know if any of you have ever noticed it or studied it, but there is a system of understanding of how we're wired as well that was developed by Abraham Maslow, and it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And there's a correlation between the system of the 7 chakras and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm using that as a basis to move through some of this. And then when we get to the end today, we're going to do a meditation that brings all this together as far as being in the here and now. And the premise that has always been with man back from the very beginning is first survival, and that's like the base chakra. And no matter which form man has been in, from Homo erectus to Neanderthal on up through the stages of man that they've been able to track, all of them have that drive to survive. And what's important to recognize, when I realized I was going to be taking world religions, I had no idea the class starts back there. The class starts looking at like a million years ago, like what was happening a million years ago. And so you're taking a look at from the very beginning of our awareness of where man comes from and how that develops. There are 2 concepts that emerge. And the 2 concepts that emerge that are still working in correspondence today are what is imperative, and also then there's a word that they use that I had never heard before called the numinous. And the numinous is the awe-inspiring. The numinous is that which defies explanation by whatever level of concept a person would have. And that what's true is, so if you look at this chakra system that we have all throughout our energetic system that we're aware of today, it goes from the base chakra on up through procreation, that's the 2nd chakra, and then the power of choice is the 3rd chakra, and then the heart chakra, and then the power of voice, which is up here, and then the 3rd eye, which is our intuition, and then the top is self-actualization, or the actual living from the being of bliss that we've recently talked about. Okay? And what's true is the corresponding relationship from way back there, a million years ago, between the drive for survival and the seeking of the numinous, they're working together the whole time. And that I kind of imagine like a teeter-totter, sort of like we do today. You know how we say, in 1 minute I'm grounded in the human and I have all my fears and my worries and I'm trying to make sure all my baselines are covered, and the next minute I know that I'm one with spirit and I'm looking for the next, ecstatic, blissful meditation. And what's true is the way that religion developed is about that. Okay, so back in the ice ages, if you can imagine, human beings survived through an ice age where like over 1/3 of the entire planet is covered by frozen ice. And at that time, we weren't the top of the chain, and we were prey. And so we had all kinds of, you know, saber-toothed tigers, I mean, literally, and giant bears that would eat us for lunch. And so back at that time, the drive for survival was key, and our unity as a people was more cohesive and not hard to imagine, at least as tribes, because we needed each other. We were imperative to each other's survival. And so one of the things I wanted to just stop and point out here, I went and I looked up when man got control of fire, and they're not entirely sure, but man got control of fire sometime between 1 million and 2 million years ago. And when I say to you that the co-creative process has been here the whole time, to be able to imagine, I mean, can you imagine living in an ice age and surviving an ice age? They were surviving the ice age before they got a handle on fire. And then out of the drive to survive, and the most important godlike thing that you have is between the animals that provide your food and the sun in the sky, which is like the fire in the sky, and then the magic that they saw, like when lightning would light fires, you know, and not being able to conceive of what that is. And then all of a sudden, somebody who has got it on the ball and reaches for it a little harder suddenly discovers, oh my God, we can light a match. We can control this puppy. Okay, so that was the first thing that like took the consciousness of man to a whole new level, and that was like 1 to 2 million years ago. Okay, and the interesting thing is that as a person's imperatives get met, then moving up the chakra system, once an imperative at one level gets met, then we're free to think about something else, right? We're then striving for the next level up. And we still do this today, you guys. If you think about it in your own lives, you can be moving along and moving through, you know, if life is going, humming along fairly well, then you have time for maybe artwork or taking a class, some kind of stretch that you sometimes don't have time for, depending on what your needs are at that time. The more basic your need is, the less room you're going to have for those higher order kinds of things. And so then the next thing that happens is, in the natural order of how the world evolved, the next big one is called the Neolithic Age. And what happened in the Neolithic Age is the glaciers began to melt, which was, of course, by order of nature. And I just want to point out one thing. This is kind of like a little sidebar, but just fascinating, because you all may have heard, like when you read the Bible stories and you get to the story of Noah's Ark, and there's only one story like in our Bible about Noah's Ark. But if you look into other religions also have stories of the Ark at different times, kind of, and in different ways. And it doesn't say it was Mount Ararat and all that different kind of stuff. And so you're like, what's going on with that? You know, all the way back then when people couldn't commune and couldn't meet on Zoom and put all their thoughts together, how is it that there are various Ark stories, right? But what they're realizing now is, oh my goodness, when the glaciers began to melt, I mean, it massively changed the sea levels. And the amount of how that changed the climate and how much raining probably went on, now they're understanding that in different cultures at different times, there would have been like a great flood. And who knows what all they went through to survive that period of time when the great floods came. And I share that with you just to kind of open up your concept of what is possible with regard to what has been going on, about how religions develop and how our personal faith is actually driven by natural things. And then as our drives come together, then of course we create contexts to go around them. Okay. And so the thing is that when the Neolithic age came and everything switched, well, not everything, but for a whole bunch of the people, sorry, I just moved my desk a little bit there. When that happened, what was so important about that is that when the ice began to melt, another huge breakthrough in consciousness happened, and somebody, just like somebody figured out that they could build fire consciously, somebody figured out that if you plant a seed by intention, it will grow the apple or it will grow whatever. Okay, and this happened about 10,000 years before Christ. So you're talking about 12, somewhere between 12 and 20,000 years ago in the Neolithic age, they figured out, oh my goodness, we don't have to go around chasing the buffalo. We can stop and we can plant things. And if we plant things, they will grow. Now, what's important about that is there has been this great debate that we go through here. Is it the patriarchy or is it the matriarchy? And is it Father God or Mother God? And all of that kind of thing. But you guys, it's not really a battle between the masculine and the feminine. Whether or not it has been seen as a patriarchy or matriarchy has been driven by what the key of survival was at that time. So when it was about chasing the buffalo and killing the buffalo, it was pretty much patriarchal, unless you were just a really, really, buff woman, right? So mostly they relied on the patriarchy, and at that time it was the shamans, and there were some feminine shamans too. That was from the beginning of them being able to track this. But then when the Neolithic age came and it was about planting the seed and everybody could slow down and not be chasing the food around, all of a sudden a correlation between the planted seed in Mother Earth and the planted seed in the woman got to be the thing. And then that was a representation of God and the numinous. It's like, how does this happen? Oh my goodness, the woman must be the Godhead. And that is when the first overall kind of like worldwide matriarchy came, okay? And then as things have shifted, then it goes back and forth between whether the locus of what makes us feel the safest at a primal level comes generally from the masculine or the feminine. And so today, because of the way our society is structured, neither of those is so much the case. And so on both sides, we have this challenge. It's like, okay, what is the woman's role? What is the man's role? And what I want to offer you here is our single human lifetimes are a blip on the screen to the length of time that nature is working this out. Okay, that's on like a collective level. Nature is working it out, but the idea that we have that we're fighting so hard because it seems like we ought to be able to figure it out in our lifetime, I'm suggesting to you all to maybe work on surrendering that a bit. And then when we do this meditation, I'm going to offer you something that maybe will help. I wanted to read something that I found about the innate spiritual nature of man. And then I'm going to give you one example of how all this applies today that I'm aware of from my life. But they do now, like scientists agree that there is an innate spirituality in man. We come from that knowing. We come from knowing that all of creation is spirit and expression. And I went back and I was trying to find, I know it's either Troward or Emerson, who also specifically said that we are created not only consciously knowing that we're spirit and form, but actually wired in the human being, wired in our physiology, is a spiritual component. And I found this from another scientist. It says, the instinct for spirituality is hardwired in man. This is our fourth instinct, the one beyond the instincts for survival, power, and sexuality. It is a genetically based physical instinct that has a metaphysical purpose. It is a natural hunger for the supernatural experience. It propels us to find meaning and transcendence in the mundane. And so the example that I want to give you here comes from my own life. And after I give you this example, we're going to do a little meditation working with the chakra system. And the example that I want to give is, there was a time between my marriages, and actually I started this process when I was still in my first marriage. I got married the first time when I was 19 years old. And as you might imagine, my husband was not that much older than I was. So we were a bit of a train wreck. And there was quite a bit of chaos that went on in my life. And I was metaphysically aware already. I had been baptized in Science of Mind when I was 18. So I had some foundation. And as you might imagine, I was really swinging wildly between the fears and concerns for survival that I had and my knowing on a spiritual level. And it just seemed like the pendulum was wide, man. I would be swinging, and every day it seemed like I was just struggling. And then what occurred to me is that, number one, in order for me to find my way to no longer being hauled around by the fears I had for my survival, I was just going to have to decide that I was going to have a good day. And I was going to live from that place regardless of the evidence before me of chaos. And once I made that decision, then I started watching, how long can I stay in a sense of serenity? And how long does it take for me to latch on to the next thing I have to be afraid of? And when I first started, I could only go 5 minutes and I would be worrying about the next thing. And it's like expanding your mental equivalent of good. So I could sit for like 5 minutes in serenity and know that I could be of peace. And then the next thing would challenge me, and I would have to face that and encourage myself to stay calm regardless of what felt like chaos to me. And over time, I began to bring together my imperatives with my numinous. And because at one time they were like at odds with each other and swinging wildly. And as I practiced saying to myself, you know what, internally, I choose to be of peace. Internally, I choose not to be hauled around by what's going on in my external reality. Okay. And practicing as much as I could. And I'm not saying I did it perfectly. And it's still a process I go through. Today, just recently, I hit the top of my mental equivalent of good, and I got afraid. And I had to work through something there. So I'm saying this is an ongoing process. But what is true is, at the same time that I started grounding myself in choosing to be of serenity, regardless of what was going on in the world, then on the other side of that is knowing that, hold on, I just lost my thought. That, because we're looking for that ecstasy in the numinous, we're looking for that connection to that being of bliss. And it used to be, when I started, that, I mean, in order for something to strike me as awe and wonder, it really had to hit me over the head. And I had to learn to find blissfulness and find my deep connection to God in the simplest of things. And this is why many of you, and some of you might not be aware of this about me, but many of you are. If somebody asks me how I am, I start out by saying, I'm excited or I'm whatever. And it might feel like it's a little bit of a put on, but it's really, truly not. I have learned to be excited as if I had just seen the face of God, if I can, in the simplest possible thing. And that's the other side of what brings that together. So on one hand, I'm choosing to be in serenity regardless of the effects of the world. And on the other hand, I'm choosing to have dynamic peace, because that drive we have to want that spark, that drive we have to feel the awe and wonder in the universe, that is by nature. Nature says, look for that drive. And so as we are able to find that spark in simpler and simpler things, then the whole world comes into easier harmony, because it just isn't as difficult to bring that state about. And I realize there might be lots of questions, and we are going to do, or comments. We are certainly going to do our sharing time. But before we do, I want to do our meditation. And again, this is going to gently follow the chakra system. I'm not going to spend long on each one, but what I'm going to be inviting you to do, I just want to plant this as an idea so it doesn't totally catch you off guard. I want to invite you to bring together at each level of your being what at that level is your imperative, which if you don't relate to the word imperative, it's like, what is most important to me at this level? Okay, bringing together what's most important to you at each level with where you find awe and wonder at that level. And kind of bringing them together in the same space, and imagine them holding hands like this. Okay, and just one other thing I want to leave you with before I start this meditation. One of the reasons why both the human level imperatives that are like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the spiritual side are always with us. And one way that we can relate to that, that most of us have heard of, is that when you're firing on your survival, like what you need for food and what you need for creativity and all of those kinds of things up to self-actualization, that's happening on one side of the brain, like the more logical side. And then what they call the esoteric side, the side that is purely energetic and purely awe and wonder, is firing on the other side of the brain. And so they're always available to working together. And so part of my point in inviting you to consider, what are my imperatives and what is my awe and wonder at each level, invites us to bring them together so that there's more of a balance in how we're actually seeing ourselves spiritually as human beings. So that being said, just take a moment to find your comfort zone. Take a breath. And hopefully, having been introduced at a cognitive level, invite yourself to find that comfortable place for a bit of a guided meditation. And imagine settling. Feel more supported by the furniture around you. And gradually turning your attention to your understanding of spirit, your own spirit, your own soul. With the idea in mind of your chakra system, even if you haven't given it much consideration before, even if you don't necessarily believe it's a literal truth, that's okay. This is merely a construct. And so beginning at the beginning, the first chakra, the root chakra, is at the base of your spine, and it's usually represented as the color red. Just imagine yourself comfortably seated, surrounded by the energy of your root chakra. And ask yourself, what is most important to me at this level? And just listen for a moment. And then, perhaps as if holding each of your hands out, holding out the other hand, and saying, where do I connect with spirit at this level? Where is my awe and wonder in survival? One example of this might be how fantastic it is if we have been thirsty, really looking for a drinking fountain, or really looking for a river, and suddenly we find it. I remember myself when I've been in that position, I often say, the elixir of life. Life itself is in that water at a primal level. Now, taking a breath, imagine ascending up to the next chakra. The second chakra is procreation, and in some senses, creativity itself. And simply, gently ask yourself, at the level of procreation, at the level of the generations in my family, at the level of my parents or my children, what is most important to me? And then on the other side, what is it at this level, at the level of the generations before or after me? Where do I feel the pure awe and wonder in living? Perhaps recalling looking into a newborn child's eyes for the first time. That would be the numinous at the level of the second chakra. Taking another breath and allowing yourself to ascend and rest in the third chakra, which is at the solar plexus. I often call this chakra the chakra of choice. At your level of having a choice, a directive in your life, what is most important to you? What is the most essential thing? And then on the other side, when you're in communion with your power to choose, where do you find awe and wonder? Where does it just amaze you that you can use the power of choice and have a demonstration? Oh my gosh. Sitting with that for just a moment. Taking yet another breath. And coming into the heart chakra, which, not surprisingly, is at the very center of the chakra system. At heart, what is the most essential thing to you? And at heart, where do you find spiritual awe and wonder? What is most amazing to you about your heart, about the human heart? Where is that direct line straight to your understanding of universal God? Taking yet another breath, coming up into the fifth chakra, which is at the throat. This chakra is the locus of interpretation. It's the locus of symbolism. It's the place where we take some of that, which is the unseen, coming from that knowing, and we symbolize it. We do our meaning makings. Very often, dream symbolization can come through the throat chakra. Certainly, it comes into our interpretation of speaking the word. The throat chakra is very involved in speaking the word that moves essence into form. And so at that level, at the level of your voice, what is essential to you? And at the same time, at the level of your voice, what is your awe and wonder? What amazes you as an expression of spirit? Seeing spirit through the voice in the world, seeing spirit through the symbolism of the world. Where is the awe and wonder for you? Coming now, gently and easily ascending into the sixth chakra, which is often called the third eye, at the very center in the body of what is known as the forehead. And is intuition and a portal for higher guidance. What is essential to you? What is the most important thing in your experience right now? And this is ever evolving. As you come to these understandings, it doesn't mean that this is your lockdown. This is just where we are right now, and it's ever evolving. With regard to intuition, what is essential to me right now? And at the same token, in regard to intuition, what is my experience of the numinous? What is my experience of awe and wonder in relationship to my understanding of God? And finally, taking one more breath and imagine that your seated self ascends to the crown chakra, coming to the top of the spiritual evolution mountain. Recently, we've been introduced to the idea that we are born to be beings of bliss. And here in this moment are we, individually and together, sitting in that space of unified oneness, even unto perhaps not even recognizing your individual I. Simply one with all that is. And for the purpose of leaving the entire system as integrated, check in and see, as a being of pure bliss, what is essential to me? What is my knowing, my belief about union with creation? And by the same token, probably doesn't even need to be articulated, as you can't really articulate that which has no boundaries. But what is your experience of that direct union with all of spirit? Just taking a moment to allow this to find its place, this process to find its place within you, with gratitude paid forward, and simply saying, thank you, God. Release it in your own way, turning it over to that which is the mystery, For no matter how many times we come to this place of pure knowing, Spirit expands before us, always has from time immemorial, and always will, because we are actually timeless. When you're ready, come back.
I'm going to say our affirmation, and then we will say it together. My positive thoughts bring abundance to all areas of my life. My positive thoughts bring abundance to all areas of my life. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I'll move into announcements, and I will tell you that tomorrow night, October 5th, from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., Deepak Chopra, in conjunction with Centers for Spiritual Living, home office, is having a webinar called Total Meditation, and it's $40, but it includes his new book, Total Meditation, and there'll be a series of ways to meditate and how to use meditation to open up other parts of your life. You can still go ahead and sign up and do that. You won't get your book before tomorrow night, but you'll have it later. And since I know a lot of people are signing up now, you won't need it, obviously, to take advantage of the hour-and-a-half webinar. So there, in your constant contact, there is all kinds of information for you to go to CSL and sign up for that. And the last announcement I have is next week, Reverend Carolyn's still traveling again, and we have a very special speaker coming next week. You won't want to miss this. And I want to tell you, in case he wants to say something right now, that we are very happy to tell you that Rick McCullum will be back with us to give our talk. And we're just really excited. Do you have anything you want to say, Rick?
I believe next week I'll be speaking about inextricably connected, about our cosmic connection with spirit as well as with each other. And if you don't know the word inextricably, don't worry about it, because I'm going to define it for us. It's not a word I was used to saying, but it's kind of fun. So I'll look forward to being with you next week and sharing information about how we are all connected and where that takes us in our lives.
Wonderful. We are definitely looking forward to that. Okay, I'm going to do the closing treatment today, but before I do that, I'm going to tell you that our closing song is Michael Gott's Love Can Heal the World. It doesn't have words, but I am putting that in chat right now so that you can sing along. It just seems appropriate for all that we're going through right now, for us to hold that love in our heart so that others can see it in us and we can change the world. So let's settle in for our closing treatment. Take a deep breath and say, wow, how thankful can I possibly be for finding a philosophy that teaches me that I am never alone? How thankful can I possibly be for finding like-minded people to share with, to grow with, to explore further with? There's no limit to what I can do because of the strength I draw from everyone here. And so in closing the service, I just express overflowing gratitude for the feelings, for the love, for the connection, for the knowing of the truth as it radiates from each of us to one another. And I carry that with me for the rest of the week. And I release these good feelings into a law that takes everything automatically and impartially and makes it beautifully whole and evident in my life. And so it is. And now let's sing.
Just one life, that's all that we've been given here. Just one chance to make a difference where we live. I'm just one man, I'm only human, but only human means I've got a lot to give. Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move this world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Feel the wind of love increase as we move this world to peace. Come love the world with me. Look around, there's someone hurting near you. Look around, there's something you can do. Look within you and find your spirit to change the world. There's got to be a change in you. Love can move the world as the moon in the sky moves the sea. Love can cause the wars to cease. Love can move this world to peace. It's a tide that begins with you and me. Love can move the world as the warmth of the sun moves the tree. Feel the wind of love increase as we move this world to peace. Come love the world with me. with me.
So just for that closing second, as we've spent time internally holding out both the right and the left, just imagine that here we sit with our eyes open and we see each other holding that balance. Just bring your hands together, recognizing that nature actually does have the plan, and the mystery will continue to expand before us. But as we come together in communion and union in spirit, we are one.